Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was adopted by son of Gran Torino. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world is not created equal. That was the hard truth that 4-year-old Izuku Midoriya learned, not in a doctor's office, but amidst the dust and screaming of a collapsing shopping district. But the lesson he would learn at age 7, the one that would forge his bones into steel and his heart into an engine, was different. Speed is not a gift. It is a discipline. Musudafa's shopping district, 10 years ago. The sun was unseasonably warm for late April. The Musudafa district hummed with the idle chatter of weekend shoppers, the chiming of automatic doors, and the laughter of children. In the center of it all, clutching a limited edition All Might action figure, was 7-year-old Izuku Midoriya. Mom! Look! It has the Silver Age cape. Izuku beamed, holding the plastic figure up to the sunlight. Inko Midoriya smiled, her eyes crinkling with that perpetual warmth that defined Izuku's world. She adjusted the strap of her purse and patted his unruly green hair. I see it, Izuku. It's very heroic. Just make sure you hold onto it tight, okay? We need to get groceries for dinner. Katsudon? Izuku asked, his eyes wide with hope. Katsudon, she confirmed. It was a perfect moment. The kind of mundane, beautiful memory that feels like it should last forever. Then, the air pressure dropped. It wasn't a sound at first, it was a sensation. The hair on Izuku's arms stood up. The glass storefronts around them began to vibrate, a low, thrumming frequency that rattled teeth. Villain! Someone screamed from the upper balcony. The explosion that followed shattered the world. A villain known as Tectonic, a low-level thug with a high-level earth manipulation quirk, had been cornered by police and had panicked. He slammed his hands into the central pillar of the shopping complex, sending a shockwave through the foundation. Concrete screamed. Steel buckled. The floor beneath Inko and Izuku lurched violently upward, throwing them apart. Izuku! Inko's voice tore through the roar of collapsing masonry. Mom! Izuku scrambled on his hands and knees, the All Might figure clattering away, forgotten. Dust billowed in choking gray clouds, turning the sunny afternoon into a twilight of debris. A massive slab of ceiling, heavy with rebar and lighting fixtures, groaned above them, its supports severed. Inko looked up. She saw the slab. She looked at Izuku, who was 5 meters away, frozen in terror as the floor beneath him began to crumble into the sublevels. She didn't think. She pulled. Inko's quirk, usually only strong enough to lift small objects, surged with the hysterical strength of a mother. She reached out, her fingers hooking into the air, and she yanked. Izuku felt an invisible force grab him by the waist, flinging him backward, away from the fissure, sliding him across the polished tile into the safety of a sturdy doorframe. But the action of pulling him threw Inko off balance. She stumbled forward, into the shadow of the falling slab. Time seemed to slow. That was the first time Izuku experienced it, the dilation of seconds that occurs when tragedy strikes. He saw his mother look at him, her face pale, tears welling in her eyes. She smiled, a terrified, heartbreaking smile. Then, a blur of white and blue tore through the air. Boom! A sonic boom shattered the remaining windows. A hero, moving faster than the eye could track, slammed into the falling slab from the side. It was the pro-hero Jetstream. Clad in a sleek, aerodynamic white suit with blue piping and heavy, turbine-like greaves on his legs, Jetstream hit the concrete with the force of a locomotive. He wasn't a strength hero. He was a speed hero. He used momentum. Move! Jetstream roared, his voice strained as he braced his legs against the floor, his back against the tons of falling rock. The turbines on his calves spun up with a high-pitched whine, blue flames jetting out to create counterpressure. He was trying to hold the building up. Inko was directly beneath him. Jetstream looked down, his visor cracked, sweat pouring down his face. Ma'am! Crawl! Now! Inko scrambled, reaching for Izuku. But Tectonic wasn't done. From the floor below, the villain unleashed a second wave of tremors. The support column Jetstream was using for leverage disintegrated. No! Jetstream screamed. The hero lost his footing. The weight of 3 stories of concrete came down instantly. Jetstream, reacting with instinct honed by years of combat, made a split-second choice. He couldn't stop the slab. He could only save one. He lunged, not at the rock, but at the child. In a blur of motion, Jetstream grabbed Izuku and blasted his turbines, launching them both horizontally out of the storefront just as the entire north wing of the mall pancaked into the earth. Izuku tumbled across the pavement outside, skinning his knees, rolled to a stop, and looked back. Dust. Just a mountain of dust and twisted metal. "Mom?" Izuku whispered. Beside him, the hero Jetstream fell to his knees. The hero, a man in his early 30s with spiked gray hair and a sharp jawline, stared at the rubble. His hands were shaking. "Mom?" Izuku said louder, standing up and taking a step toward the ruin. Jetstream moved. He didn't use his speed this time. He just reached out and wrapped his arms around the small boy, pulling him into his chest, burying Izuku's face in the fabric of his suit so he wouldn't see the blood seeping from under the rocks. "Don't look," the hero choked out, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't look." And then, Izuku screamed. 3 days later, Mustafa General Hospital. The room was sterile and white. Izuku sat on the edge of the bed, his legs swinging listlessly. He hadn't spoken since the incident. The police had come. The social workers had come. They told him things he already knew. No father on record, Hisashi was abroad and unreachable, having cut ties years ago. No grandparents on the maternal side. He was alone. The door creaked open. It wasn't a nurse. It was the hero. Jetstream. He wasn't wearing his costume. He wore a simple button-down shirt and slacks, looking uncomfortable and far too human. His arm was in a sling, and there was a bandage over his left eye. "Hey," the man said softly. Izuku didn't look up. He stared at his hands. The man pulled a chair up and sat down. He didn't offer platitudes. He didn't say it would be okay. He sat in the silence for a long time, letting the weight of the room settle. "My name is Kenji," the hero said eventually. "Kenji Sorahiko." Izuku blinked. I wasn't fast enough," Kenji said. It wasn't an excuse. It was a confession. "I'm a pro-hero. My quirk is jet propulsion. I'm supposed to be one of the fastest in the prefecture, but I wasn't fast enough to save her." Izuku's lip trembled. "You saved me. It wasn't a trade I wanted to make," Kenji admitted darkly. He looked at the boy. He saw the hollowness in those green eyes, a hollowness Kenji recognized. It was the look of someone who had seen the abyss. Kenji Sorahiko was a solitary man. He was the estranged son of a legend, a man who had run away from his father's shadow only to end up in the same profession. He wasn't a father material. He lived in a bachelor pad, ate takeout, and patrolled until his legs cramped. But for 3 nights he hadn't slept. He saw the mother's face. He saw the boy scream. "The social worker told me you don't have anyone," Kenji said. Izuku shook his head slowly. Kenji took a deep breath. This was insane. His father would kill him. His agency would think he'd lost his mind. But he couldn't leave this kid to the system. The system didn't raise heroes, it raised ghosts. "I can't replace her," Kenji said, his voice firm. "And I won't try. But I have a house. It's messy, and I can't cook anything but eggs and toast. But it's safe." Izuku looked up, tears finally spilling over. "Why?" "Because," Kenji reached out, resting a calloused hand on Izuku's shoulder, "someone has to be there to catch you." Yamanashi Prefecture, 1 week later. The adoption process was expedited. Being a pro-hero with a clean record had its perks. Izuku Midoriya was technically a ward of the state, but placed in the foster care of Kenji Sorahiko with intent to adopt. But Kenji knew he couldn't do this alone. His patrol schedule was erratic, and he knew nothing about raising a traumatized 7-year-old. He needed help. He needed the one person he swore he'd never ask for help again. They took the train out of the city, into the quieter, older prefecture of Yamanashi. They walked down a street lined with aging buildings until they reached a dilapidated 2-story house that looked like it was held together by spite and memories. "Kenji-san?" Izuku asked, clutching his small backpack. "Who lives here?" "My father," Kenji sighed, adjusting his sunglasses. "He's difficult. Don't take anything he says personally. He yells at everyone. He once yelled at All Might for breathing wrong. Kenji knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again. Old man! I know you're in there. I can smell the taiyaki. The door flew open with terrifying speed. A short, elderly man with a cane and a white cape stood there. His eyes were hidden behind thick, yellow-tinted goggles. He vibrated with an intensity that made the air feel thin. Gran Torino, you're loud! The old man barked. And you're late. I've been retired for years, Kenji. Why are you darkening my doorstep? Nice to see you too, Dad, Kenji muttered. He stepped aside, revealing Izuku. Gran Torino stopped. The grumpy veneer didn't vanish, but it froze. He peered over his beard at the small, green-haired boy. He looked at the freckles. He looked at the timid stance. Who is this? Torino asked, his voice dropping an octave. This is Izuku, Kenji said. I'm adopting him. Torino looked from the boy to his son, then back to the boy. He saw the grief radiating off the kid. He saw the way Kenji stood protectively near him. You! Torino scoffed, turning around and walking back into the dark house. You can barely wash your own dishes. You want to raise a kid? I'm doing it, Kenji said, ushering Izuku inside. But I need help. I can't leave him alone when I'm on patrol. The interior of the house was a dojo. It was sparse, clean, and smelled of tatami mats and old tea. Torino hopped onto a chair, unwrapping a taiyaki. He took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. Boy, Torino said, pointing a gloved finger at Izuku. What's your quirk? Izuku froze. This was it. The moment where he would be rejected again. The doctors had told him a year ago. The extra toe joint. The futility. Izuku looked at his shoes. I don't have one, sir. Silence stretched in the room. Kenji tensed. He hadn't discussed this with his father yet. He prepared to defend Izuku, to say it didn't matter. Torino swallowed his taiyaki. He jumped down from the chair. He walked up to Izuku, leaning in close. Thwack. Torino tapped Izuku's shin with his cane. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to startle. I didn't ask what you don't have, Torino grunted. I asked what you have? You got 2 legs? 2 arms? A brain between your ears? Izuku blinked, rubbing his shin. Why yes? Then you're not empty, are you? Torino turned his back, walking toward the kitchen. Quirks are just tools. If you don't have a hammer, you use a rock. If you don't have a rock, you use your head. Kenji, put the boys' bags in the guest room. Dinner is in an hour. If he pukes on my mats, you're cleaning it up. Kenji let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked down at Izuku and grinned. That went better than expected. The montage, the forging of a jet. Life with the Sorahikos was not a recovery. It was a reconstruction. For the first 6 months, Izuku didn't train. He healed. He went to therapy. He cried. Kenji was there for the nightmares. Gran Torino was there for the discipline. The old man didn't coddle him, but he offered a strange, gruff stability. When Izuku was sad, Torino would simply hand him a broom and say, "Moping wastes energy. Sweep." But the world of heroes was never far away. Izuku watched Kenji on the news. He watched old clips of All Might. The desire to save people, the desire to be like the man who saved him, burned brighter than ever. It started on his 8th birthday. Izuku found Gran Torino in the backyard, bouncing between trees like a pinball. The speed was terrifying. I want to do that, Izuku said. Torino landed, hanging upside down from a branch. You can't. I have air jets in my feet. You have feet in your feet. I don't care, Izuku said, his small fists clenching. I want to be a hero. Like Dad. Like All Might. Torino dropped to the ground. He looked at Kenji, who was watching from the porch. Kenji nodded. Fine, Torino said. But listen to me, brat. Since you don't have a quirk, you have to be faster than everyone else. Not running speed. Reaction speed. Processing speed. You have to see the punch before they throw it. You have to move before they decide to attack. The training began. Age 9, Izuku vomited. A lot. Torino's training was archaic and brutal. It wasn't about weightlifting, it was about mobility. Tai sabaki. Evasion. Don't be where the attack is! Torino yelled, swinging his cane. Izuku tripped over his own feet. Thwack. Too slow. The floor is not your friend, it is a launch pad. Bounce. Age 10, Kenji took over the evenings. He was an engineer as well as a hero. He began teaching Izuku physics. Momentum, Kenji explained, drawing diagrams on a whiteboard. Mass times velocity. You're small, Izuku. You'll probably always be small. You can't hit like All Might. So you have to become a bullet. If you hit someone at terminal velocity, it doesn't matter if you have super strength. They're going down. Izuku started keeping notebooks. Hero analysis for the future morphed into combat analysis and trajectory prediction. He didn't just draw costumes, he drew weak points. Age 12, the bullying at school continued, but the dynamic shifted. Katsuki Bakugo cornered Izuku behind the gymnasium. Deku! You think because some D-list hero adopted you you're special? Bakugo popped an explosion in his palm. Izuku didn't flinch. His eyes tracked the spark. He shifted his weight to the balls of his feet. I'm not special, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. Bakugo swung a right hook, explosive power behind it. In the past, Izuku would have cowered. This time, he ducked. He didn't just duck, he dropped his center of gravity, pivoted on his left foot, and let Bakugo's momentum carry the explosive boy past him. Bakugo stumbled, hitting the wall. I'm just fast, Izuku whispered. He walked away before Bakugo could recover, his heart pounding, but his head high. Age 13, Izuku received his first piece of gear. Kenji presented him with a pair of heavy iron-soled boots. To build leg strength, Kenji lied. They're heavy. Izuku complained, trying to lift his leg. Wear them every day. To school. To the store. In your sleep if you can, Torino cackled. When you take them off you'll see. The present day, age 14, the alarm clock didn't get a chance to beep. Izuku's hand snapped out and silenced it at 5:59 a.m. He rolled out of bed, his room a shrine to heroes, but cleaner than it used to be. Posters of All Might shared space with framed newspaper clippings of Jetstream and obscure, grainy photos of Gran Torino. Izuku stood in front of the mirror. He wasn't the scrawny kid anymore. He was lean, built like a runner. His legs were defined, corded with muscle developed from years of weighted squats and parkour. He ran a hand through his hair, which was currently trying to escape his head in every direction. Izuku! Breakfast! Kenji's voice drifted up from the kitchen. Izuku grabbed his school uniform. Aldera Junior High. The black gakurin hid his physique, making him look deceptively average. He strapped on the heavy iron-soled red sneakers, standard-issue Sora Hiko torture devices, and headed downstairs. The kitchen was a chaotic scene of eggs and coffee. Kenji was reading a tablet, his hero costume half on. He had a morning patrol. Gran Torino was asleep at the table, snoring softly, a bubble expanding and contracting from his nose. Morning, Dad. Morning, Gramps, Izuku said, grabbing a piece of toast. Eat protein, Kenji said without looking up. You have mock exams today. Don't let your blood sugar drop. I'll be fine. My grades are top of the class. I'm talking about the practical, Kenji said, lowering the tablet. I heard Bakugo is aiming for UA2. Izuku paused, the toast halfway to his mouth. Yeah. He is. He's still giving you trouble? He tries, Izuku smirked slightly. He's got a lot of openings in his right side when he gets angry. Gran Torino snorted, waking up instantly. Cocky brat. Analyzing isn't fighting. If that boy sets off a nitroglycerin explosion in your face, knowing his opening won't save your eyebrows. I know, Gramps, Izuku said, chugging a glass of milk. Speed and guts. And situational awareness. Torino yelled as Izuku ran out the door. Don't get tunnel vision, Aldera Junior High. The classroom was loud. The teacher was droning on about career aptitude tests, but everyone knew it was a farce. You all want to be heroes, don't you? The teacher sighed, throwing the papers in the air. The class erupted into quirk displays. Fire, stones, stretching fingers. Hey, teach! Bakugo kicked his feet up on the desk. Don't lump me in with these extras. I'm the only one here with the stuff to make it to the big leagues. I'm going to UA. Ah, yes, the teacher checked his clipboard. Bakugo has excellent marks. And oh, Midoriya is applying to UA as well. The room went deadly silent. Then laughter. Midoriya? The quirkless kid? He can't get into the hero course. He's gonna die in the exam. Bakugo didn't laugh. He slammed his hands on his desk, small explosions popping. DKU. Izuku didn't jump. He calmly closed his notebook, Combat Analysis Volume 13, and looked up. What is it, Kaken? You think you can compete with me? Bakugo growled, stalking toward Izuku's desk. You're a pebble. A quirkless reject. You think because your daddy can fly you can too? I don't need to fly, Izuku said, his voice steady. He stood up. The weighted shoes clunked heavily against the floor. I just need to keep up. Yui got rid of the rule against quirkless students years ago. I have every right to try. Bakugo lunged to grab Izuku's collar. In one fluid motion, Izuku leaned back, letting Bakugo's hand grasp empty air, then swiveled out of his chair, ending up standing in the aisle behind Bakugo. Don't touch me, Kaken, Izuku said. Bakugo turned, his eyes wide with fury. Smoke curled from his palms. He was about to blow the classroom apart when the teacher finally intervened. Enough. Bakugo, sit down. Midoriya, back in your seat. Bakugo glared, his red eyes burning holes into Izuku. I'll kill you, Deku. You set foot in that exam, and I'll crush you. We'll see, Izuku murmured. The underpass. School ended with the usual tension. Izuku took the long way home to avoid Bakugo's cronies. He wasn't afraid of them, but Gran Torino had a strict rule: no fighting civilians unless they attack with intent to kill. Otherwise, run. He walked through the familiar underpass, muttering to himself, analyzing a new hero debut he'd seen on his phone. Empty lady. Gigantification. Poor collateral damage control, but excellent crowd suppression. He heard the gurgling sound behind him. Situational awareness, Torino's voice echoed in his head. Izuku spun around, dropping his bag. A massive wall of green sludge rose from the sewer grate. Two bulging yellow eyes stared at him. A medium-sized skin suit. The villain hissed. Perfect. The sludge lunged. Izuku didn't scream. He moved. He leaped backward, his weighted shoes slamming into the pavement. Too fast. The sludge was faster than it looked. A tendril lashed out, aiming to wrap around his mouth. Izuku batted the tendril away with his bag, the fabric tearing. He scrambled up the curved wall of the tunnel, using his parkour training to gain height. Slippery little brat. The villain roared, expanding his mass to block the exit. Fluid body, Izuku analyzed aloud, his heart hammering against his ribs. Physical strikes won't work. Needs to be scattered or evaporated. He was trapped. The villain filled the tunnel. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to go. The sludge crashed down like a wave. Izuku braced himself, crossing his arms to protect his face. Clang. The manhole cover above them flew off. Have no fear. A booming voice filled the tunnel. A massive figure dropped from the sky, landing with enough force to send a shockwave through the sludge. For I am here, All Might. The symbol of peace stood there, illuminated by the shaft of sunlight. He pulled back a fist. Texas. Smash! The wind pressure alone was devastating. The sludge villain didn't just break. He vaporized, splattered against the walls of the tunnel in 1,000 harmless droplets. Izuku shielded his eyes from the gale force. When the wind died down, he looked up. There he was. The hero his mother had loved. The hero whose toy he had lost in the rubble 7 years ago. All Might stood tall, laughing his signature laugh. He began scooping the sludge into empty soda bottles with blinding speed. Are you all right, young man? All Might asked, flashing a thumbs up. Apologies for the mess. I was chasing this fellow through the sewers. Izuku stood frozen. This was the moment every fanboy dreamed of. He should be asking for an autograph. He should be fainting. But Izuku looked at All Might, and thanks to Kenji's training in spotting fatigue and Torino's lessons on breathing, he saw something else. All Might was shaking. There was a subtle trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His smile was rigid, almost painful. All Might. Izuku stepped forward. You're hurt. All Might flinched. Hurt? Nonsense. I am the picture of health. Your stance favors your left side, Izuku said automatically, his analytical brain taking over. Your breathing is shallow. And that punch. The wind pressure was directed, but you braced yourself afterward like you were in pain. All Might stopped collecting the sludge. He looked at this green-haired middle schooler with sudden intensity. You have a sharp eye, kid, All Might said, his voice losing a bit of its booming quality. But I assure you, poof. Steam erupted from the hero. Izuku yelped, stepping back. As the steam cleared, the muscular giant was gone. In his place stood a skeletal, emaciated man with sunken eyes and jagged hair. He coughed, a spray of blood hitting the pavement. Way out? Izuku screamed. Quiet. The skeletal man waved his hands frantically. Don't attract attention. You deflated. Izuku pointed. Where did All Might go? Are you an imposter? I am All Might, the man sighed, sitting down heavily on the tunnel curb. He lifted his shirt, revealing a horrific, spider-web scar covering half his torso. Izuku gasped. That injury, 5 years ago, All Might said. Toxic chainsaw? No, he couldn't do this. A villain you've never heard of. It ate my respiratory system. Stomach. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day now. Izuku stared at the scar. It was a ruin. The fact that this man was still standing, let alone throwing punches that changed the weather, was a biological miracle. Why are you telling me this? Izuku asked. Because you noticed, All Might said tiredly. And because you didn't ask for an autograph first. You asked if I was okay? All Might stood up, capping the last bottle of sludge. Pro heroes are always risking their lives. Some injuries can't be fixed. I smiled to show the world that the symbol of peace is unbreakable. But the truth is, I'm running on fumes. He looked at Izuku. You're a fan, right? Keep this secret. The world needs to believe I'm invincible. Izuku nodded vigorously. I promise. I won't tell a soul. My dad is a hero too, I know about confidentiality. Oh? Who's your father? Jetstream. Kenji Sorahiko. All Might froze. His eyes bulged. He dropped the soda bottle. So Sorahiko? All Might stammered. He looked at Izuku's green hair, then at his face. You're Kenji's kid? Adopted, Izuku clarified. But yeah, All Might grabbed his head, looking terrified. Does he live with you? The old man? Gran Torino? Yeah, he's my grandpa. He trains me. All Might shivered violently, a look of PTSD crossing his skeletal face. Good Lord. You poor child. You survive his training? It's intense, Izuku admitted. All Might looked at Izuku with newfound respect and a hint of pity. If you're being trained by Gran Torino, that explains the sharp eyes. Listen, young Sorahiko. I have to get this guy to the police. Be careful going home. All Might turned to leave. Wait! Izuku shouted. All Might paused. Izuku clenched his fists. I'm quirkless. All Might turned back fully. I don't have power like you, Izuku said, his voice trembling but loud. I don't have jets like my dad. But I've been training my whole life. I want to save people. I want to be a hero who can smile even when things are falling apart. Can I still be a hero without a quirk? The wind blew through the tunnel. All Might looked at the boy. He thought about the scar on his chest. He thought about the crushing weight of one for all. He thought about the danger. Pros are always risking their lives, All Might repeated softly. Without power, can you be a hero? He looked at Izuku's legs. The muscles built from years of hellish training. The heavy iron shoes. The stance, balanced, ready to move. In the original timeline, All Might said no. He was trying to be realistic. He was trying to protect a fragile boy from a cruel death. But this boy wasn't fragile. This boy was raised by Gran Torino. My master, All Might muttered. Torino always said that power isn't just what you're born with. It's what you build. All Might looked Izuku in the eye. Without a quirk, the path is steep. Steeper than for anyone else. You will be mocked. You will be hurt. I know, Izuku said. I'm used to it. Then, All Might smiled, a small, genuine smile that didn't need the muscle form. If you have the guts to run toward the danger when everyone else runs away, yes. I think you can. Izuku's knees buckled. Tears sprang to his eyes. Boom! An explosion rocked the city, not far from them. All Might patted his pocket. The villain! The bottle was gone. Tatooine shopping district. Fire raged. The sludge villain had escaped, and this time, he had a hostage. Don't come any closer. The villain screamed, explosions popping from the sludge. He had possessed a blonde boy. It's the kid from the tunnel. Izuku realized, running toward the crowd. He pushed through the onlookers. The heroes were useless. Backdraft was fighting the fire. Death Arms couldn't get close. Empty Lady couldn't fit in the street. Where is All Might? Someone screamed. Izuku reached the police tape. He saw the hostage. It was Bakugo. The sludge was forcing its way down Bakugo's throat. Bakugo's eyes were wild, filled with terror. He was suffocating. Kenji wasn't here. Gran Torino wasn't here. All Might was out of time. Izuku's body moved on its own. Hey kid! Stop! Death Arms yelled. Izuku didn't stop. He ducked under the tape. Think. Don't just run. Analyze. The villain was fluid. Eyes were the only solid point. Bakugo was creating explosions, keeping the villain loose but also causing the fires. Izuku sprinted. He was fast. Much faster than the canon timeline. The weighted shoes dug into the asphalt, propelling him forward like a missile. You again? The sludge villain roared. I'll kill you this time. A sludge tentacle lashed out, Sorahiko style. Izuku grit his teeth. He slid. Izuku dropped to his knees, the iron soles sparking against the road, sliding under the tentacle. He popped back up instantly, using the momentum to launch himself into the air. He reached into his pocket. Not a weapon. A simple, high-pressure canister of compressed air Kenji had built for him, a prototype gadget. Izuku aimed at the villain's eye. P-H-H-H-T bang. The canister discharged, shooting a concentrated blast of air. It wasn't a smash, but it was enough. The sludge rippled, the eye tearing up. The villain flinched, his grip on Bakugo loosening for a microsecond. Izuku landed on the villain's bulk. He didn't claw at the sludge. He grabbed Bakugo's collar. Kaken! Breathe, Deku? Bakugo choked out. Get out of here! The villain recovered, swinging a massive fist of mud at them. Izuku didn't let go. He planted his feet on the villain's semi-solid chest. Let go! Izuku threw his weight backward, using his legs, Torino's legs, to perform a backflip, dragging Bakugo with him. It shouldn't have worked. A quirkless boy shouldn't be able to pull a hostage free. But the air blast, the surprise, and the sheer explosive leg strength combined. They tumbled out of the sludge, rolling onto the pavement. I've got you! Izuku gasped, shielding Bakugo with his body as the villain shrieked. The villain towered over them, ready to crush them both. Then a yellow blur. Gran Torino? No, Detroit. Smash! All Might appeared from the smoke. He forced his body past the limit. He punched not the villain, but the air pressure around the villain. The weather changed. Clouds swirled. Rain began to fall. The villain was scattered across the street. All Might stood there, steam rolling off him, victorious. Sunset. The scolding was brutal. You idiot! Kamui Woods yelled at Izuku. You could have gotten yourself killed. That was reckless. Death Arms agreed. Izuku bowed his head, accepting the lecture. He knew they were right. But he also knew he had saved Bakugo. On the other side, the heroes were praising Bakugo for his bravery and powerful quirk, feeding his ego even as he glared at Izuku. When the police finally let him go, Izuku walked home as the sun set. He was exhausted. His legs burned. Kenji was going to kill him. Deku! Izuku stopped. Bakugo came running up behind him. He looked disheveled, his pride bruised. I didn't ask for your help. Bakugo yelled, panting. I was fine. You didn't save me. Don't look down on me, you quirkless loser. Bakugo turned and stomped away. Izuku sighed. You're welcome, Kaken. He continued walking. He turned the corner toward the Sorahiko residence. I am here! All Might zoomed out from an alleyway, sliding to a stop in front of Izuku. He was in his muscle form for a second, then poofed back into the skeleton. Young Sorahiko. All Might coughed blood. All Might? You should be in the hospital. I had to catch you. All Might wiped his mouth. I watched what happened. The other heroes scolded you. But I saw it. All Might took a step closer. I said earlier that without a quirk, the path is steep. But today, in that crowd of people with powers, you were the only one who moved. Izuku's breath hitched. There are stories about every top hero, All Might said, looking at the sky. Their origins are different, but they all share one thing. Their bodies moved before they could think. Izuku clutched his chest. The memory of his mother. The years of training. The heavy shoes. The ridicule. That happened to you today, didn't it? Yes, Izuku whispered. My legs just moved. All Might smiled. You have the heart. You have the training. And God knows, if you're Kenji's boy, you have the stubbornness. All Might extended a hand. Izuku Midoriya. I have a secret to tell you. My quirk, it can be passed on. Izuku stared. What? I am looking for a successor, All Might said. I've been looking for a long time. I thought about giving it to a student at UA, maybe someone with a strong quirk already. But watching you today, watching a quirkless boy save a life through sheer speed and guts. All Might pointed at him. I want you to inherit my power. Izuku fell to his knees, sobbing into the pavement. But All Might added nervously, looking around. We have to ask your grandfather first. If I give you this quirk without telling Gran Torino, he will actually murder me. Izuku laughed through his tears. Yeah, he probably would. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of the Sorahiko household, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. For Izuku Midoriya, the light felt different today. Heavier. More real. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above him. His body felt like it had been run over by a truck, reversed over, and then run over again. The adrenaline of the sludge incident had long since faded, replaced by the deep, aching bruise of reality. He had saved Katsuki Bikugo. He had met All Might. He had been offered the greatest power in the world. Izuku sat up, wincing as his hamstrings protested. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, his feet instinctively searching for the floor. They found the cold wood, and for a moment, he just sat there, breathing. Don't overthink it, kid, he whispered to himself. Just breathe. Downstairs, the smell of burnt toast and high-grade coffee signaled that the day had begun. Izuku dressed slowly, pulling on his school uniform. He paused at the heavy red sneakers, the Sorahiko specials. He laced them up tight. They felt lighter today, or maybe his legs just felt more purposeful. When he entered the kitchen, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kenji Sorahiko, the pro-hero Jetstream, was leaning against the counter, nursing a mug of black coffee. He wasn't wearing his hero's suit. He was in a t-shirt and sweatpants, his left arm bandaged from a patrol scrape, looking every bit the tired single father. Gran Torino was sitting at the table, reading the morning newspaper with a magnifying glass. He didn't look up as Izuku entered. Morning, Izuku murmured, sliding into his seat. You're on the front page, Torino said, his voice gravelly. He didn't sound happy. He didn't sound angry. He sounded like a judge reading a verdict. Izuku froze. I am? Torino flipped the paper around. There was a grainy photo taken by a bystander. It was a blur of motion, Izuku midair, backflipping out of the sludge, clutching Bakugo by the collar. The headline read, Middle School Student Assists in Hostage Rescue Before All Might Arrives. Your form was sloppy, Torino critiqued, pointing a crooked finger at the photo. Look at your left knee. You're not tucking enough. If the villain had grabbed your ankle, you would have torn your ACL. And the landing? I saw the news footage. You rolled, which is good, but you rolled into traffic. Situational awareness, brat. 0 points. Kenji sighed, setting his mug down. Dad, give him a break. He saved a life. He got lucky. Torino snapped, slamming the paper down. Luck runs out. Speed doesn't. Kenji walked over and placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. He squeezed gently. What my father is trying to say, in his own emotionally stunted way, is that we're glad you're alive. And, that was a hell of a move, Izuku. Izuku looked up at Kenji. The man's eyes were kind, but lined with worry. Kenji knew the risks of the job better than anyone. He had adopted Izuku to save him from tragedy, not to push him into it. I didn't think, Izuku admitted. My legs just moved. Torino paused. He lowered the magnifying glass. The old hero's eyes, usually hidden behind those yellow goggles, peered over the rim. Your legs moved on their own? Torino asked quietly. Yes, sir, Torino grunted. He picked up a piece of pickled radish and crunched it loudly. Good. That's instinct. You can't teach that. You can teach a monkey to punch, but you can't teach a monkey to care. He pointed a chopstick at Izuku. But don't get a big head. You're still slow. And today, you're going to school. If the media asks you anything, you say no comment and run away. You're good at running. Yes, sir. And Izuku? Kenji added, his tone serious. We need to talk about All Might later. He called the house line this morning. Izuku nearly choked on his rice. He called here? He's coming over for dinner, Torino said, a terrifying, shark-like grin spreading across his face. I haven't seen Tashinori in a long time. We have much to discuss. Izuku shivered. He didn't know why, but he suddenly feared for the symbol of peace. Aldera Junior High School was a battlefield of a different sort. Usually, Izuku Midoriya was invisible. He was the background character, the Deku. But today, as he walked through the gates, heads turned. Whispers followed him like a wake. That's him, right? The kid from the news? I heard he doesn't have a quirk. Then how did he jump 20 feet? Maybe he has a secret quirk? Izuku kept his head down, gripping the straps of his backpack. He walked to his shoe locker, changed into his indoor slippers, which felt bizarrely light after the weighted sneakers, and headed to class. When he opened the door to 3A, the noise died instantly. 30 pairs of eyes locked onto him. Midoriya! One of his classmates, a boy with fingers that could extend like measuring tapes, jumped up. Dude! Was that you on the news? The sludge thing? Yeah, Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. Sort of. You looked like a pro. Another girl chimed in. You dodged that tentacle-like whoosh. For the first time in his life, the attention wasn't mocking. It was curious. Izuku felt his face heat up. He wasn't used to this. He was used to pity or disdain. Then, a chair scraped loudly against the floor. Katsuki Bakugo sat at his desk in the center of the room. He hadn't looked up. He was staring at the wood grain of his desk, his shoulders hunched, radiating an aura of pure, concentrated malice. The class went quiet again. Everyone knew the dynamic. Bakugo was the alpha, Midoriya was the punching bag. But yesterday, the punching bag had saved the alpha. Izuku walked to his desk. He had to pass Bakugo to get there. As he walked by, Bakugo didn't move. He didn't speak. But the air around him smelled like ozone, the scent of nitroglycerin sweating from his palms. Izuku sat down. He pulled out his notebook. He tried to focus on the lesson plan. All right, settle down, the teacher entered, looking more tired than usual. I know yesterday was eventful. But we have mock exams coming up. Open your history books to page 142. The morning passed in a blur. Lunchtime arrived. Izuku usually ate on the roof to avoid trouble, but today, he felt anchored. He stayed at his desk, eating the bento Kenji had packed, hastily made omuris with a smiley face drawn in ketchup. Kenji tried his best. Deku. The voice was low, guttural. Izuku stopped chewing. He swallowed. He closed his bento box slowly. Bakugo was standing over his desk. His hands were in his pockets, but his posture was coiled tight. We need to talk, Bakugo said. Roof. Now, Izuku hesitated. In the past, this was the prelude to a beating. But he remembered Torino's voice. Momentum. Don't be where the attack is. And he remembered All Might's voice. You have the heart. Okay. Kaken, Izuku said calmly. He stood up and followed Bakugo out of the classroom. The other students watched, exchanging nervous glances. On the roof, the wind was strong. It whipped Bakugo's ash-blonde hair around his face. He walked to the fence and stood there for a long moment, staring out at the city. Izuku waited near the door, keeping his distance. Safe zone. You think you're better than me, Bakugo said. It wasn't a question. No, Izuku replied. Bakugo whipped around, his face twisted in a snarl. Don't lie to me. You pulled that stunt yesterday to look down on me. To show everyone that the quirkless Deku is actually some hidden badass. You were laughing at me the whole time. I wasn't laughing, Izuku said, his voice steady. He wasn't shaking. Why wasn't he shaking? I was terrified. I thought we were both going to die. Then why did you move? Bakugo screamed, explosions popping in his palms. Why did you step in? I didn't ask for your help. I was fine. You weren't fine, Izuku said. He took a step forward. You were suffocating, Kaken. I could see it in your eyes. Bakugo flinched as if slapped. And I didn't move because I think I'm better than you, Izuku continued, his hands balling into fists at his sides. I moved because my body wouldn't let me stand still and watch you die. That's it. Bakugo stared at him. He looked for the fear. He looked for the stuttering, weak Deku he had bullied for a decade. He couldn't find him. In his place was a boy who stood differently. His weight was balanced. His eyes were sharp. You've been hiding it, Bakugo spat. Whatever you did, that speed, you've been hiding a quirk. I don't have a quirk, Kaken, Izuku said. I just have a dad who taught me physics and a grandfather who hits me with a cane if I'm slow, Bakugo scoffed. He took a step forward, raising a hand. You think some parlor tricks make you a hero? I'm going to you, Deku. I'm going to be the #1 hero. You're just a pebble on the side of the road. Bakugo launched an explosion. A right hook. It was fast. Bakugo was talented, undeniably so, but Izuku had spent 7 years dodging Gran Torino. Izuku didn't block. He didn't retreat. He stepped into the guard. He dropped his level, ducking under the swinging arm. He felt the heat of the explosion singe the hairs on his neck. As he passed under Bakugo's arm, Izuku didn't strike. He simply used his shoulder to check Bakugo's hip, disrupting the explosive boy's center of gravity. Bakugo stumbled, flailing to keep his balance, and slammed into the chain-link fence. Izuku stood 5 feet away, turning to face him. I'm applying to you too, Izuku said. And I'm not going to be a pebble, Kaken. I'm going to be the one who catches up. Bakugo pushed himself off the fence, his face red with humiliation and confusion. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to blow him up, but his instincts, the sharp battle instincts that made him a prodigy, screamed a warning. He's not scared. Watch your back, Deku, Bakugo growled, shoving past him to the door. Because next time, I won't miss. Izuku watched him go. He let out a long breath, his knees finally shaking. That was terrifying, he whispered to the wind. But I didn't freeze. The Sorahiko residence, 6 p.m. The doorbell rang. It was a timid, hesitant ring. Kenji was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of curry. Izuku, get the door. That's probably him. Izuku rushed to the Jankan. He smoothed his shirt, checked his hair in the mirror, still a disaster, and took a deep breath. He opened the door. All Might stood there, but not the All Might the world knew. This was the skeleton form, Toshinori Yagi. He wore a baggy yellow suit that hung off his emaciated frame like drapes on a scarecrow. He was holding a box of expensive melons. Ah, young Midoriya. Toshinori smiled nervously, blood trickling from his mouth. Good evening. I brought fruit. Come in, All Might. Please. Izuku ushered him inside. Please call me Toshinori when I'm like this, he whispered, stepping out of his oversized shoes. Is he here? Who? My teacher. From the living room shadows, a cane tapped rhythmically against the floor. Tap. 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 Toshinori froze. He looked like a deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. Gran Torino sat in his armchair, the dim light reflecting off his goggles. Toshinori. Gran Torino. Toshinori stood at attention, his back cracking audibly. It has been too long. You look healthy, and you look like a corpse, Torino grunted. He pointed the cane at the sofa. Sit. Toshinori sat. He sat on the edge of the cushion, back straight, hands on his knees. The symbol of peace, the man who laughed in the face of evil, looked like a student called to the principal's office. Kenji walked in, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He looked at the skeletal man and sighed. So, the rumors were true. You really did wreck yourself. Kenji-kun, Toshinori nodded respectfully. It's good to see you. I'm sorry I haven't kept in touch. The job, it consumes everything. I know, Kenji said, sitting on the arm of Torino's chair. That's why I retired from the top charts and stuck to local patrol. But we aren't here to talk about my career choices. Kenji looked at Izuku, who was sitting on a stool, clutching a notebook. We're here to talk about my son, Kenji said. And this power you want to give him. The atmosphere in the room shifted. It became heavy, charged with secrets. Toshinori took a deep breath. He looked at Izuku, then at Torino. I assume, Toshinori said, that you haven't told the boy the full story of our quirk? I haven't told him anything, Torino said. Not my secret to tell. Though I should have beaten it out of you years ago for keeping it so quiet. Toshinori turned to Izuku. His expression was solemn. Izuku. You know my quirk as super strength. The world calls it unmatched power. But that is not its nature. Toshinori held up his hand, clenching his fist. My quirk was not something I was born with. It is a sacred torch, passed down from one generation to the next. I am the 8th holder. Izuku's eyes widened. His pen hovered over his notebook. Passed down? Quirk transfer? But that's biologically impossible unless it is called one for all, Toshinori interrupted. One person cultivates the power and passes it to another, who cultivates it further and passes it on. It is the crystallization of power, the voices of the past, pushing the future forward. Izuku dropped his pen. And you want to give that to me? I do. But why? Izuku asked, his voice trembling. There are so many better heroes. Endeavor. Best genist. Or students at UA with amazing quirks. I'm just me. Because they have quirks, Torino cut in sharply. Everyone looked at the old man. Listen to me, brat, Torino said, leaning forward. Toshinori was quirkless too. Before my friend, his master, found him. You were? Izuku looked at All Might in shock. Toshinori nodded. I was. Just like you, Torino continued. A cup that is already full cannot hold more water. If you give one for all to someone who already has a quirk, it might overload them. Or worse, their own ego might clash with it. But you, Torino pointed his cane at Izuku's chest. You're empty. But you've spent your whole life building the vessel. We built your legs. We built your reflexes. We built your mind. You are a custom-built chassis waiting for an engine. Kenji crossed his arms. And what are the side effects? If you put a Ferrari engine in a bicycle, the bicycle breaks. That is the danger, Toshinori admitted. If his body isn't ready, the power will blow his limbs off. Kenji paled. Excuse me? That won't happen, Torino said dismissively. Because I trained him. And because I will be overseeing the transition. Unlike someone, he glared at Toshinori, who ran off to America before finishing his training. Toshinori shrank. I had to. All for One was hunting me. All for One? Izuku asked. A story for another time, Torino said quickly. The point is, Izuku, this isn't a gift. It's a burden. You will be targeted. You will have to carry the weight of the world. Can you handle that? Izuku looked at his hands. He thought about the sludge villain. He thought about his mother. He thought about the feeling of helplessness that had dogged him his entire life. He looked at Kenji. His dad nodded slowly, giving him permission to choose. He looked at All Might. I'll do it, Izuku said. I'll take it. I want to save people with a smile. Toshinori grinned. Spoken like a true hero. So, Izuku pulled his notebook back out, his eyes gleaming with analytical fervor. How does the transfer work? DNA ingestion? Blood transfusion? Is there a symbiotic resonance requirement? Toshinori blinked. You have to eat my hair. Silence. Gross, Izuku said. Gross, Kenji agreed. Ha! Torino cackled. Eat up, brat. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park, 2 days later. The beach was a graveyard of trash. Appliances, tires, driftwood, and plastic stretched for miles along the coastline. It was a dump. Toshinori stood in his muscle form, for effect, holding a piece of paper. Izuku stood in his track suit and heavy shoes. Gran Torino sat on a mini-fridge, eating a taiyaki. Behold! All Might boomed. This is your training ground. You have 10 months until the UA entrance exam. My plan is for you to clean this entire beach to build your muscle mass. He handed Izuku a schedule. The American Dream Plan. Izuku looked at it. Sleep schedule, diet plan, bench press targets. Gran Torino snatched the paper from Izuku's hand. He looked at it for 2 seconds. Rip. He tore it in half. Hey. All Might deflated into his skeletal form. I spent all night on that. Garbage, Torino spat. He doesn't need bulk. Look at him. He's been doing my training for 7 years. He has the core strength. He has the legs. If you bulk him up like a bodybuilder, he'll lose his speed. He'll be a tank with no treads. But One for All requires mass to withstand the recoil. Toshinori argued. It requires density, Torino corrected. Striated muscle. Fast twitch fibers. We aren't building a statue, Toshinori. We are building a jet. Torino jumped off the fridge. He drew a line in the sand with his cane. Izuku. You're cleaning the beach. But not by lifting. Izuku tilted his head. Sir, you're going to use momentum, Torino said. Physics. I want you to move that fridge. But you can't carry it. Kick it. Kick it? Use your hips. Torque. Impact. Move the trash into the truck using only strikes and leverage. If you pick it up with your hands, I add 10 pounds to your shoes. Izuku looked at the fridge. It was rusted and heavy. Probably 150 kilograms. He took a deep breath. He analyzed the object. Center of mass, friction coefficient of the sand. He stepped back. He ran. As he approached the fridge, he pivoted on his left foot, swinging his right leg around like a baseball bat. Wham! The metal dented. The fridge slid 3 feet through the sand. Again. Torino yelled. Faster. Don't stop between strikes. Flow. Wham. 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 Izuku began to work. He treated the trash like opponents. The tires were villains. The microwaves were obstacles. He parkoured over piles of debris, delivering drop kicks to washing machines, sending them tumbling toward the collection point. Toshinori watched, his mouth slightly open. He's vicious, Toshinori whispered. He's efficient, Torino corrected, crossing his arms. He analyzes the weak point of the trash, the rusted hinges, the balance points, and he strikes there. He's not using strength. He's using intelligence applied at high velocity. Torino looked at his former student. He's going to be better than you, Toshi. You relied on 100% power because you were a natural. This kid? He knows what it's like to be weak. So he learns how to apply 5% effectively. 5%. Toshinori mused. That's the goal, Torino said. By the exam, I want him to handle 5% of One for All. Full cowling. Full cowling? Toshinori scratched his head. I just, sort of, flexed my butt cheeks and yelled smash. Torino facepalmed. I failed you as a teacher. I really did. 4 months later, the beach was changing. Slowly, the mountains of trash were receding. Izuku was changing too. He wasn't getting bigger in the traditional sense, but he was getting sharper. His muscles were like steel cables. His movements were blurring. One evening, as the sun set, turning the ocean purple and gold, Izuku collapsed onto a clean patch of sand. Water, he croaked. Kenji, who had come to pick him up, tossed him a bottle. Izuku caught it without looking, his reflexes automatic. Good session? Kenji asked. Gramps made me kick a truck axle for an hour, Izuku groaned. My shins feel like jelly. Kenji sat down next to him. I brought you something. He pulled a small device out of his pocket. It looked like a pair of sleek, green headphones with a visor attachment. What is it? A heads-up display, Kenji explained. I've been tinkering in the workshop. Since you're moving faster now, your eyes need help processing the data. This connects to a sensor suite I'm building for your suit. It tracks velocity, wind direction, and thermal signatures. Izuku's eyes lit up. Like a fighter jet pilot? Exactly like a fighter jet pilot, Kenji smiled. You're a Sorahiko, Izuku. Even if your blood is different, your style is ours. We own the sky. Or, in your case, the space 3 feet off the ground. Izuku put the headset on. It hummed to life. A transparent green grid appeared over his vision. It highlighted the structural weak points of the trash pile nearby. This is amazing, Dad, Izuku whispered. Kenji rubbed the back of his neck, looking embarrassed. Just, don't break it on the first day, okay? I won't. And Izuku? Yeah? I'm proud of you. Izuku smiled, the exhaustion fading for a moment. 10 months later, the morning of the exam, the beach was pristine. The sun rose over the horizon, revealing a sparkling coastline. No trash. No debris. Just white sand and the gentle lapping of waves. Izuku stood at the top of the seawall. He was wearing his school uniform. He looked out at the ocean, his chest heaving slightly. Toshinori and Torino stood behind him. You finished early, Toshinori said, impressed. The exam isn't for another 3 hours. I wanted to be ready, Izuku said. Torino walked up and poked Izuku's leg with his cane. The muscle was rock hard. Adequate, Torino grunted. You might actually survive. Toshinori reached into his pocket and pulled out a single strand of blonde hair. It waved majestically in the sea breeze. The time has come, young Midoriya. All Might declared, shifting into his muscle form. Eat this. Izuku stared at the hair. Do I really have to? It contains the DNA required to bridge the gap, Izuku sighed. He took the hair. He looked at it. He closed his eyes, imagined it was a very thin, very dry noodle, and swallowed. He waited. I don't feel anything, Izuku said. It takes a few hours to digest and integrate, All Might explained. By the time the practical exam starts, you should feel the spark. Torino stepped forward. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Listen to me carefully, the old master said, his voice devoid of its usual mockery. One for all is a stockpile of power. It is a raging river. If you open the floodgates all at once, you will drown. Your limbs will shatter. I know, Izuku said. You've told me. So don't open the gates, Torino said. Crack them. Just a sliver. Remember the feeling of the microwave. Idling. Hum the engine. Don't redline it. 5%. That's your limit. If you go over, I'll beat you senseless in the hospital bed. Understood, Izuku nodded. Now go, Kenji shouted from the car parked on the road. You're going to be late for the written exam. Izuku bowed to his masters. Thank you. I won't let you down. He turned and sprinted toward the car. He moved with a grace that was unnatural, his feet barely touching the sand. Toshinori watched him go. He's ready, Toshinori said. He's better than ready, Torino muttered, a small smile hiding in his beard. He's fast. Yui High School gates. The massive glass structure of Yui loomed overhead. Thousands of students were streaming in. Izuku stepped out of Kenji's car. Good luck, Kenji called out. And remember. Momentum. Got it. Izuku walked toward the gate. He felt a strange buzzing in his stomach. Was it the hair? Or just nerves? He was so focused on his internal diagnostic that he didn't see the uneven paving stone. He tripped. Classic, Izuku thought as the ground rushed up to meet him. After 10 months of super training, I trip on a rock. He braced for impact. But he didn't fall. He felt a sudden lack of gravity. He floated. Are you okay? A cheerful voice chirped. Izuku looked up. A girl with a round face and brown bobbed hair had tapped his shoulder. He was hovering 2 inches off the ground. It's bad luck to trip on the first day. She smiled. I used my quirk to stop you. Sorry I didn't ask first. She released him, and he landed gracefully on the balls of his feet. Oh. Thank you. Izuku stammered. That was zero-gravity manipulation? Fascinating. Removing the gravitational pull on an object's mass. You're funny. She laughed. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Good luck inside. She waved and ran off. Izuku stood there, blinking. I talked to a girl. And I didn't faint. Out of my way, Deku. The demon arrived. Bakugo walked past him, shoving his shoulder. Bakugo looked focused. Intense. Don't think that just because you got lucky at the beach, you can beat me here, Bakugo whispered as he passed. I saw the beach, by the way. Cleaned it up nice. Good job for a janitor. Izuku straightened his back. I'm not a janitor, Kaken, Izuku said to Bakugo's back. I'm the competition. Bakugo paused, glanced back with a sneer, and kept walking. Izuku took a deep breath. He clenched his fist. He could feel it now. Deep inside. A small, burning ember. A hum, one for all. It was waiting. He stepped through the gates. The concept of a hero is often romanticized. It is painted in bold primary colors, draped in capes, and set against a backdrop of cheering crowds. But the making of a hero, that is a process painted in the dull gray of sweat, the black and blue of bruises, and the stark white of exhaustion. For Izuku Midoriya, the path to Yui wasn't a sprint. It was a marathon run at a sprinter's pace. Month 1, The American Dream vs. The Sorahiko Reality. The morning air at Dagoba Municipal Beach was salty and cold. The sun had barely crested the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the mountains of trash that choked the coastline. Toshinori Yagi stood atop a rusted refrigerator, his skeletal form shivering slightly in the wind. He held a stapled packet of papers in his hand, titled The Aim to Pass, American Dream Plan. Young Midoriya, Toshinori announced, trying to inject his usual gusto into his deflated voice. This is the roadmap to your future. I have calculated your metabolic rates, your sleep cycles, and the exact caloric intake required to turn you into a vessel capable of holding one for all. Izuku stood on the sand, dressed in a green tracksuit and his weighted red sneakers. He looked at the packet with reverence. Thank you, All Might. I've already memorized the nutritional appendix you emailed me. Good. Now, the first phase is building muscle mass through heavy lifting. We need to broaden your shoulders, thicken your chest. Thwack. A wooden cane struck the packet of papers, knocking it out of Toshinori's hand. The wind caught the pages, scattering the American Dream Plan across the garbage-strewn beach. Hey! Toshinori yelped. Gran Torino stood there, adjusting his yellow goggles. He looked like a disgruntled garden gnome who had just woken up on the wrong side of the lawn. Garbage, Torino spat. Absolute garbage. That took me 3 days to write. Toshinori protested. It had clip art. I don't care if it had a foreword by the Prime Minister, Torino grunted. He turned his gaze to Izuku. Boy, come here. Izuku scrambled over. Yes, grandfather. Torino circled him, poking his ribs, his thighs, and his shoulders with the cane. Toshinori, you're trying to build a tank. Look at this kid. Does he look like a tank to you? Toshinori looked at Izuku. The boy was lean, wired with the kind of muscle that came from 7 years of parkour and evasion training. He wasn't broad, he was compact. Well, no, Toshinori admitted. But one for all is a power-based quirk. He needs the bulk to absorb the recoil. Recoil only happens if you stand still and take it, Torino countered. If you build him like a bodybuilder, you'll ruin his center of gravity. You'll destroy the aerodynamic efficiency we've spent years cultivating. Do you want him to be a second-rate All Might, or a first-rate Deku? Izuku blinked. First-rate me? Torino nodded. Exactly. We aren't training you to hold the power. We're training you to flow with it. Torino pointed his cane at a massive pile of rubber tires, rusted bicycle frames, and driftwood. Toshi wants you to lift that trash and carry it to the truck. I say that's a waste of time. Then, what do I do? Izuku asked. You're going to move it, Torino grinned, revealing teeth that looked ready to bite. Using momentum. You see that washing machine? It's heavy. If you lift it with your back, you're slow. But if you use the Sorahiko style, Torino dropped his cane. In a blur of yellow and white, the old man vanished. Bang! He reappeared midair, his foot driving into the side of a rusted washing machine. He didn't just kick it, he struck the center of gravity while twisting his hips. The washing machine didn't just tip over, it flew. It tumbled end over end, clearing 10 feet of sand before skidding to a halt near the collection truck. Torino landed lightly on a pile of tires. Kinetic energy, Torino lectured. Mass times velocity squared. You don't need to be strong if you're fast enough. I want this beach cleared, but I don't want to see you lifting anything unless you're throwing it. Kick it. Shoulder check it. Use leverage. Turn this junkyard into a dojo. Izuku's eyes widened. He pulled out his notebook. Instead of static lifting, dynamic impact training. Increasing bone density through microfractures and healing, refining trajectory calculation. Stop muttering and start kicking, Torino yelled. And so, the nightmare began. Month 2, the grind. For the first few weeks, Izuku was sure his legs were going to fall off. The beach wasn't just dirty, it was hostile. Shards of glass, unstable piles of metal, and slick patches of oil made every step a gamble. But this was exactly what Torino wanted. Situational awareness. Don't look at your feet, Kenji shouted from the promenade one evening. He had come to watch the training after his patrol. Look at the path ahead. Your feet should know where the ground is. Izuku was currently trying to move a rusted sedan chassis. He couldn't kick a car. He wasn't that strong yet. Instead, he was using a rusted pipe as a lever. Fulcrum point located, Izuku grunted, jamming the pipe under the axle. He jumped, landing his full weight on the end of the pipe. The car groaned and tipped. Izuku didn't stop. As the car tipped, he ran up the side of the chassis, using his momentum to push it further, flipping it onto a makeshift sled of car hoods he had constructed. Smart, Toshinori observed, sitting on the seawall with Kenji. He's improvising. He has to, Kenji said, sipping a canned coffee. He doesn't have a quirk to bail him out. He has to see the physics of the world in real time. Toshinori looked at the man who had raised his successor. You've done a good job, Sorahiko. He's a good kid. Kenji smiled, a tired, soft expression. He saved me, you know. After the mall collapse. After I failed his mother. I thought I was done. I was going to hang up the cape. But he needed someone, and turns out, I needed someone too. He idolizes you, Toshinori said. He talks about Jetstream just as much as he talks about All Might. He talks about you more, Kenji laughed. Don't let it go to your head. Down on the beach, Gran Torino blew an air horn. Break time is over. The tide is coming in. If that pile of microwaves isn't moved in 10 minutes, you're swimming home. Yes, grandfather. Izuku screamed, sprinting toward the appliances. Month 4, the miracle on the coast. It was supposed to take 10 months. Toshinori had calculated the volume of trash. He had factored in rest days. He had done the math. But math doesn't account for obsession. By the end of the 4th month, the sun rose over Dagoba Beach, and there was nothing to cast a shadow. The sand was white. The water, once murky with runoff, lapped clearly against the shore. The mountains of garbage were gone. Izuku stood in the center of the beach, shirtless, glistening with sweat. He wasn't the scrawny kid anymore. He wasn't a bodybuilder either. He looked like a swimmer, lean, corded muscle, defined abs, and legs that looked like they could kick through a brick wall. He was panting, his hands on his knees. I did it, Izuku wheezed. Toshinori dropped his grocery bag. A carton of eggs smashed on the pavement. Already? Toshinori gaped. But the schedule. We're 6 months ahead of schedule. Gran Torino walked up to Izuku. He poked the boy's stomach with his cane. It was hard as a rock. He poked his thigh. Iron. Humph, Torino grunted. Not bad. Not bad? Izuku beamed, wiping sweat from his forehead. I cleared the whole thing. You cleared the easy part, Torino corrected. You moved the weight. Now comes the hard part. Toshinori stepped down to the sand, shifting into his muscle form. Young Midoriya. This is incredible. You are truly a vessel worthy of. All Might plucked a hair from his head. Eat this. Izuku reached out. Whack. Torino's cane slapped Izuku's hand away. Ow. Izuku rubbed his wrist. No, Torino said firmly. No? Toshinori and Izuku said in unison. He's physically ready, Torino explained, pacing around them. His body won't explode. But his mind? His control? If you give him the power now, he'll treat it like a gun he doesn't know how to aim. He'll pull the trigger and blow his arm off. But I can teach him, Toshinori started. You! Torino scoffed. You learned to use one for all in 5 minutes because you're a freak of nature, Toshi. You just clenched your buttocks and yelled smash. That's not teaching, that's vague advice from a gym bro. Toshinori slumped. That's harsh, sensei. It's the truth, Torino said. He turned to Izuku. You have 6 months left. We aren't doing physical labor anymore. We are doing visualization and integration. Integration? Izuku asked. But I don't have the quirk yet. Exactly, Torino tapped his temple. You need to build the operating system before you install the software. If you wait until you have the power to learn how to control it, you'll break your bones trying to figure it out. We are going to teach you full cowling before you ever swallow that hair. Month 6, the egg and the engine. The training location shifted. The beach was too open. They moved to the Sorihiko dojo, the backyard of their home in Yamanashi. It was autumn now. The leaves were turning red. Izuku sat in the middle of the yard, blindfolded. Visualize, Torino's voice drifted from the porch. I'm visualizing, Izuku muttered. The egg in the microwave. No! Torino shouted. Thwack. A pebble hit Izuku in the forehead. Stop with the damn egg. Toshi told you that metaphor, and it's stupid. If you put an egg in a microwave, it explodes. Do you want to explode? No. Then stop being an egg. Torino hopped off the porch. Think about your dad's quirk. Jetstream. How does an engine work? Izuku thought about the diagrams Kenji had shown him. Intake. Compression. Combustion. Exhaust. Right, Torino said. And does a jet engine run at 100% thrust all the time? No, Izuku said. If it did, it would burn out the fuel and melt the turbine blades. It idles. It hums. That is one for all, Torino said softly. It is not a switch you flip on and off. It is a state of being. You have to keep the engine running at 5%. Low hum. Constant flow throughout the whole body, not just the arm. Not just the finger. The whole system. But I can't feel it, Izuku said, frustrated. I'm imagining it, but there's nothing there. Fake it, Torino snapped. Tense every muscle in your body simultaneously, but only at 5% capacity. Hold it. Move with it. Build the neural pathways so that when the power does arrive, the road is already paved. So they sparred. Torino moved at high speeds, bouncing off the trees. Izuku, quirkless but conditioned, had to dodge. Engine on! Torino yelled. Izuku gritted his teeth, tensing his body in a uniform, low-level brace. It was exhausting. It required total mental focus. Whoosh! Torino attacked from behind. Izuku sensed the air displacement. Situational awareness. He spun, blocking the kick. He didn't have super strength, so the impact sent him skidding back 5 meters, his arms numb. Good! Torino cackled. Again. Don't let the engine stall, week after week. Month after month. Izuku learned to live in a state of heightened physical tension. He learned to breathe through the strain. He learned to move as if he were powered, even when he wasn't. Month 8, the workshop. It was snowing. A light dusting covered Mizurufu. In the basement of the Sorihiko house, the air smelled of solder and ozone. This was Kenji's sanctuary, the workshop where he maintained his jetstream gear. Izuku sat on a stool, watching his father work. It's almost done, Kenji said, his goggles reflecting the blue light of the arc welder. You didn't have to make me a suit, Dad, Izuku said. The school provides one if I pass. Standard issue garbage, Kenji scoffed, flipping the welding mask up. Yui makes great suits, but they don't know you. I know you. Kenji walked over to a mannequin covered in a tarp. He pulled it away. Izuku gasped. It wasn't the green bunny suit from his notebook. It was sleek. Tactical. The base material was a dark, forest green, made of a reinforced ballistic weave. But the most striking features were the legs. From the knee down, the suit was reinforced with heavy, white and black armor plating, shock absorbers. The soles of the boots were thick, iron reinforced, designed to withstand immense impact. And on the back, Attached to the shoulders was a short, sturdy cape. Not red like All Might's. Yellow. Like Gran Torino's. It's beautiful, Izuku whispered. I call it the Delta V prototype, Kenji explained, running a hand over the leg armor. I know you're going to be a kick-style fighter. These greaves have hydraulic dampeners. They'll absorb about 30% of the impact shock when you land from a high jump or deliver a kick. It'll save your joints. Kenji pointed to the mask. It had a metal respirator and a tinted visor. The mask has the HUD I built you. It connects to my old patrol network frequencies, so you can listen to police bands. And the respirator helps regulate your breathing rhythm, which Dad says is crucial for your full cowling thing. Izuku stood up and touched the yellow cape. And this? Kenji smiled sheepishly. Well, you're a Sorahiko. Even if you're carrying one for all, you're carrying our legacy too. I thought, maybe you'd want to represent the old man. Izuku felt tears prick his eyes. He rushed forward and hugged Kenji. Thank you, Dad. I love it. Kenji hugged him back, squeezing tight. Just come home in one piece, okay? That's all I ask. Month 10, the morning of the exam, the day had arrived. February 26th. The Sorahiko household was awake at 4 a.m. The tension was palpable. Izuku sat at the kitchen table. In front of him, on a small ceramic plate, sat a single strand of golden hair. Toshinori sat opposite him, looking solemn. Gran Torino stood by the window, watching the sunrise. Kenji leaned against the doorframe. This is it, Toshinori said. Once you eat this, there is no going back. Your DNA will change. Your life will change. You will become the 9th holder of One for All. Izuku looked at the hair. It looked innocuous. Just a piece of DNA. But he knew it was a torch passed down through generations of blood and sacrifice. He didn't hesitate. He picked it up. For the future, Izuku whispered. He swallowed it. He waited. He drank a glass of water. Do you feel it? Toshinori asked eagerly. I feel like I have a hair in my throat, Izuku admitted. Give it time. Torino turned from the window. It takes about 3 hours to digest. By the time the practical exam starts, the embers will be glowing. Torino walked over to Izuku. He didn't hit him with the cane this time. He placed a hand on Izuku's head. You've done the work, kid. You cleared the beach. You mastered the visualization. You learned the Sorahiko style. You are not going in there as a lucky lottery winner. You are going in there as a warrior. Yes, grandfather. Now get out of here, Torino grunted, turning away to hide the mist in his eyes. Go show Yui what speed looks like. Yui High School, the written exam. The written exam was grueling, but manageable. Kenji had drilled physics and math into Izuku's head for years, and Izuku's own obsessive note-taking on hero laws made the history section a breeze. But as the hours ticked by, Izuku began to feel it. A heat in his stomach. A heaviness in his limbs. It wasn't painful. It felt like he had swallowed a battery that was slowly leaking electricity into his veins. His fingertips tingled. His heart rate slowed down, the beats becoming heavier, more powerful. The engine is warming up, he thought. The practical exam, Battle Center B. The bus ride to the battle center was quiet. Izuku sat near the back, clutching the strap of his track suit. They weren't allowed to wear their personal costumes yet. He looked around. He saw the girl from the entrance ceremony, Ochako Uraraka, looking nervous. He saw a boy with glasses and engines in his calves, looking stern. Izuku closed his eyes. He visualized the switch. 5%. Just the idle hum. Don't floor it. He felt the power of One for All bubbling up. It was terrifying. It was immense. It wanted to explode. It wanted to scream. No, Izuku told the power. We don't scream. We flow. He clamped down on it mentally, forcing the raging river into a series of pipes. He spread the energy evenly, arms, legs, torso. He felt his muscles tighten, his veins bulging slightly. Green lightning flickered faintly across his skin for a second before he suppressed it. Are you ready? President Mick's voice boomed from the tower. The massive gates to the mock city began to open. The other students were stretching, waiting for a countdown. Start! President Mike yelled. There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 The students hesitated, confused. But not Izuku. Torino had taught him better. Hesitation is defeat. Before the word go had even finished echoing, there was a sonic crack. Boom! A cloud of dust exploded where Izuku had been standing. The students gasped. Izuku was gone. He was already inside the city. He moved faster than he ever had in his life. The power of one for all coursed through his legs, amplifying the Sorahiko training. Every step propelled him 20 feet forward. The wind roared in his ears. This is it, Izuku thought, a grin spreading across his face as he vaulted over a street lamp. This is velocity. A three-pointer robot, a massive drone with treads, rolled around the corner, locking onto him. Target acquired. It raised a cannon. Izuku didn't stop. He didn't brace. Momentum. He sprinted straight at the robot. At the last second, he slid on his knees, passing under the cannon fire. As he slid, he activated 5% in his legs. He kicked upward. His iron-soled shoe connected with the robot's chin. Crunch. The force was exponentially higher than anything he had done on the beach. The robot was lifted off its treads, flipping backward and crashing into a building. Izuku landed, skidded to a halt, and looked at his hands. Green electricity sparked around him. He wasn't broken. His bones were intact. Full cowling, Izuku whispered. Systems nominal. He looked up at the city, teeming with targets. Time to clean up. He vanished again, a green blur tearing through the streets of Battle Center B. Observation room. In a dark room lined with monitors, the teachers of UA watched. This year's batch looks promising, Midnight commented. That explosion boy in Center A is destructive. Indeed, Nizu, the principal, nodded. But look at Center B. He pointed to a screen. It showed Izuku Midoriya. He was bouncing between two buildings like a pinball, destroying aerial drones with spin kicks. He never stopped moving. He was a blur of efficiency. Who is that? Sniper asked. His movement, it reminds me of someone. He has no quirk registered, Eraserhead Aizawa said, his eyes narrowed as he watched the screen. The file says quirkless. But that is physical enhancement. And that style. Aizawa leaned forward. He moves like Gran Torino. All Might, standing in the back of the room in his skeletal form, hiding in a corner, watched the screen with tears streaming down his face. He's doing it, All Might whispered to himself. He's really doing it. However, Niza said, his paw hovering over a large red button. Combat ability is not the only metric. Let us see how they handle despair. Niza pressed the button. The 0-pointer. In the city, the ground shook. Buildings crumbled. A mechanical monstrosity, taller than the skyscrapers, rose from the earth. The 0-pointer. Panic ensued. Students screamed and ran away. Run! It's huge! Don't fight it! It's worth 0 points. Izuku stopped on a rooftop. He looked at the massive robot. His instincts screamed at him to run. Run away. Survive. Then he heard it. Ouch, a small voice. Izuku's eyes zoomed in, aided by the hours of tracking training. Ochako Uraraka was trapped under rubble near the robot's path. She couldn't move. The 0-pointer was looming over her. The other students were fleeing. Izuku didn't think. Power isn't just for winning, Kenji's voice echoed. Power is for saving, All Might's voice boomed. Speed is for getting there in time, Gran Torino's voice snapped. Izuku moved. He didn't run away. He ran up. He leaped from the rooftop, channeling more power. 6%? 7%? He felt the strain, but he held it together. He soared through the air, a green comet against the blue sky. Smash! He didn't punch. He remembered Torino's lesson. Legs are stronger than arms. He coiled his body midair, spinning like a drill. He aimed for the robot's faceplate. One for all, jet style. Detroit. Kick! KBM! The impact was deafening. The 0-pointer's head caved in. The massive machine groaned, tilted backward, and began to fall away from Uraraka. Izuku hung in the air for a second, weightless. Then, gravity took hold. He was falling. Fast. And his legs were numb. He had pushed too hard. I can't land, Izuku realized. If I hit the ground from this height. He saw the ground rushing up. Slap. A hand touched his cheek. He stopped falling. Ochako Uraraka, floating on a piece of debris, had slapped him. She looked pale, on the verge of vomiting, but she held him. Release! She gasped. They dropped the last 3 feet together, landing in a heap of dust. The buzzer sounded. Time's up. Izuku lay on his back, staring at the sky. His right leg was throbbing, bruised but not broken. His heart was hammering a frantic rhythm. He clenched his fist. Green sparks faded from his skin. He had arrived. The envelope was heavy. Not physically, it was standard UA stationery, thick cream paper with the official wax seal, but it carried a gravitational pull that seemed to warp the air around the Sorahiko dining table. It had been 1 week since the entrance exam. 1 week of agonizing silence. 1 week of Izuku replaying the sensation of the zero-pointer's metal faceplate crumpling under his iron sole. 1 week of icing his right leg, which had turned a spectacular shade of purple despite not being broken. Kenji Sorahiko sat across from Izuku, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. He wore his stress shirt, an old, faded t-shirt from a hero convention in 20XX. Just open it, kid, Kenji whispered, looking more terrified than he had ever looked facing a villain. Before I have a heart attack. Gran Torino sat at the head of the table, methodically peeling a tangerine. He didn't look up. Stop coddling him. If he failed, he failed. If he passed, he passed. Schrodinger's acceptance letter won't change its state just because you stare at it. Izuku took a deep breath. His hands were trembling, but not from weakness. It was the hum. Ever since swallowing the hair, ever since accessing the ember of One for All, his body felt like a coiled spring. Even sitting still, he felt the vibration of the engine waiting to be revved. He picked up the letter sender. He tore the seal. A small metal disc slid out, clattered onto the table, and projected a hologram into the air. I am here! Kenji jumped. Jesus! The projection of All Might, in his Silver Age costume, beaming with blinding charisma, filled the small kitchen. Young Midoriya! The hologram boomed. Or should I say, the newest heir to the legacy. You have waited long enough. The results are in. The hologram shifted. It showed a scoreboard. First, the written exam. A near-perfect score. Your father's obsession with physics has paid off. But a hero is not made of ink and paper alone. The video cut to footage of the practical exam. It showed the blur of green and black that was Izuku. It showed robots shattering under high-speed impacts. Your combat score, 65 points. An incredible display of mobility and precision. You struck the targets at their weakest points, wasting no energy. A true testament to the Sorahiko style. He's stealing my lines, Torino muttered, popping a tangerine slice into his mouth. But... All Might's voice dropped an octave. That is not all. A hero course that rejects those who save others is a sham course. We look for the spirit of self-sacrifice. The screen changed again. It showed the zero-pointer looming over the city. It showed the other examinees running. And it showed Izuku, a streak of light ascending into the sky. It showed the kick. The Detroit kick. You risked your own safety, and your passing grade, to save a single examinee. That action, that is the essence of a hero. And for that, we award rescue points. The numbers tallied up. Combat points, 65. Rescue points, 60. Total score, 125. Izuku Midoriya. All Might extended a hand toward the camera. You have passed with the highest score in the exam. Welcome to your Hero Academia. The hologram faded. Silence reigned in the kitchen for exactly 3 seconds. Then Kenji let out a whoop that shook the windows. He tackled Izuku into a hug, nearly knocking the chair over. You did it! You crazy kid, you actually did it! First place! Kenji was laughing, tears streaming down his face. Did you see that score? 125. That's insane. Izuku hugged his dad back, burying his face in Kenji's shoulder. The relief washed over him like a tidal wave. I did it. I'm going to UA. Gran Torino finished his tangerine. He wiped his hands on a napkin. He stood up and walked over to the hugging pair. He raised his cane. Thwack. He tapped Izuku on the head. Ow, don't get cocky, Torino grunted, though the corners of his mouth were twitching upward behind his beard. First place in an exam just means you have a bigger target on your back. The real work starts now. If you embarrass me, I'll revoke your inheritance. I don't have an inheritance, Izuku pointed out, rubbing his head. Exactly, Torino cackled. Keep it that way. April, the first day. The cherry blossoms were falling, painting the streets of Mizutafu in shades of pale pink. It was the quintessential first day of school, the kind depicted in mangas and movies. But for Izuku Midoriya, it felt like walking onto a launch pad. He stood in front of the mirror in his room. The gray uniform fit him perfectly, tailored to accommodate the denser muscle mass in his legs and shoulders. He tied his red tie, checking the knot 3 times. He sat on the bed and picked up the heavy shoes. The Delta V trainers. They were red, high-top sneakers with reinforced iron soles and internal shock absorbers. They weighed 2 kilograms each. To anyone else, they would be like wearing cement blocks. To Izuku, they felt like anchors keeping him tethered to the earth. Without them, he felt floaty, untethered. System check, he whispered. He closed his eyes. He reached down into the pit of his stomach. He found the ember. He let the energy trickle out. Not a flood. A stream. He directed it through his veins, feeling the bioelectricity spark. 1%. 2%. 3%. He stopped at 3%. A gentle idle. He opened his eyes. They seemed to glow with a faint, inner light. Ready. He went downstairs. Kenji was waiting by the door with a bento box wrapped in an all-might handkerchief. Okay, Kenji said, adjusting Izuku's collar. You have your pass? Your ID? Your lunch? Yes, Dad. I'm fine. If anyone gives you trouble, you call me. Or better yet, just run away. You're faster than them. I'm going to a hero school, Dad. Running away isn't really the curriculum. Kenji laughed nervously. Right. Right. Just be careful. And don't break your bones. I promise. Izuku stepped out of the house. The morning air was crisp. He began his jog to the station, his heavy shoes rhythmically thudding against the pavement. Thud thud. Thud thud. He felt eyes on him. At the intersection leading to the station, a familiar figure was slouching against the lamppost. Katsuki Bakugo. The blonde boy wasn't wearing his tie properly, and his pants hung low. He looked like he was vibrating with suppressed rage. As Izuku approached, Bakugo pushed off the post and blocked the path. Deku, Bakugo growled. Izuku stopped. He didn't flinch. He didn't step back. He let his arms hang loose at his sides, his center of gravity dropping slightly, a reflex honed by 1,000 cane strikes. Good morning, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. Bakugo stared at him. His red eyes were searching, dissecting. I saw the scoreboard. I figured. 125 points. Bakugo spat the number like a curse. First place. You beat me. I did. Bakugo's hands clenched into fists. Smoke curled from his palms. You lied to me for 10 years. You said you were quirkless. You said you were a pebble. But you had this up your sleeve the whole time? You were laughing at me? Watching me work my ass off while you sat on a secret power? Izuku sighed. He knew this was coming. He couldn't tell the truth about One for All. But he could tell the truth. I didn't lie, Kaken, Izuku said, meeting Bakugo's gaze. I was quirkless. Until recently. Bakugo frowned. Ha! You think I'm stupid? You can't just get a quirk. My grandfather, Izuku said carefully, is Gran Torino. You know who he is, Bakugo scoffed. Some old wash-up speedster. He trained All Might. Izuku dropped the bomb. Bakugo froze. I didn't have power, Izuku continued, taking a step forward. I had training. 7 years of hell. Broken bones. Vomit. Sleepless nights. My quirk didn't manifest naturally, Kaken. My body was forced to evolve to handle the Sorihiko lineage. It's a late bloomer activation caused by extreme physical conditioning. It was a lie mostly. But it was close enough to the logic of quirks to be plausible. So don't say I was laughing at you, Izuku said, his voice hardening. I was chasing you. And now. I've caught up. Bakugo stared at him. The explanation was absurd, yet it fit the data. The way Izuku moved. The weird, muffled nature of his power during the exam. Bakugo turned around, jamming his hands into his pockets. Caught up? Bakugo laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. Don't make me laugh. You passed the test against robots, Deku. Real combat is different. Don't think for a second that you're ahead of me. I'll crush you. I'll tear you apart, and show the world that you're just a glitch. Bakugo began to walk toward the station. Try to keep up, nerd, he threw over his shoulder. Izuku watched him go. A small smile touched his lips. I intend to, Izuku whispered. Class 1A, the Lion's Den. The door to Class 1A was massive. Izuku stood before it, feeling the sheer scale of the institution. The barrier to entry, he thought. Literally huge. He slid the door open. The noise hit him immediately. Get your feet off the desk. Ha! Who are you to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. And you are disrespecting the sanctity of this furniture. Izuku winced. It was Bakugo, and the engine's leg guy from the exam. Ida noticed Izuku standing in the doorway. He stopped his scolding and marched over, moving with robotic precision. You! Ida announced, chopping the air with his hand. Midoriya! The student who discerned the true nature of the exam. The entire class turned to look. True nature? Izuku blinked. I realized it too late. Ida exclaimed, looking genuinely ashamed. The rescue points. I was too focused on the visible objective, but you saw the hidden test immediately. You are a superior candidate. I misjudged you. I didn't really figure it out, Izuku admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. I just moved. Ida looked even more impressed. Instinctual heroism. Incredible. Oh. It's the curly-haired boy. Ochako Uraraka popped up from behind Ida. She was beaming. You passed. I knew you would. That kick was amazing. Pow. And then the robot went crunch. She mimed the action with enthusiastic sound effects. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Thanks for saving me. It was nothing, Izuku blushed. Thanks for floating me. If I had hit the ground, we'd be visiting you in the ICU, a dry voice drawled from the floor. The trio looked down. Lying in a yellow sleeping bag, looking like a very tired caterpillar, was a man with messy black hair and bloodshot eyes. He was sipping a juice pouch. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave, the caterpillar said. This is the hero course. The class fell silent. The man unzipped the sleeping bag and stood up. He looked disheveled, unshaven, and utterly exhausted. I'm Shota Aizawa. Your homeroom teacher. Teacher? The class gasped in unison. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week, Izuku muttered. And his center of gravity is listing to the left. Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. Put these on, he said, tossing them to the front row. And meet me on the grounds. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. A test? Uraraka asked. But what about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? Aizawa turned, his hair falling over his eyes. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for leisurely ceremonies. UA's selling point is its freedom. And that applies to the teachers as well. He looked directly at Izuku. Soft kids don't survive here. I want to see if you have potential, or if you're just lucky. The P grounds. The class gathered on the dirt field. The sun was high, baking the dust. Aizawa stood with a clipboard, looking bored. Bakugo, Aizawa said. You finished second in the exam. In middle school, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He grinned, a predatory expression. He wound up, channeling a massive explosion into his palm behind the ball. Die! Boom! The ball rocketed into the sky, leaving a trail of smoke. Aizawa held up a device. 705.2 meters. The class erupted. 700 meters? That's awesome. We can use our quirks? This is going to be fun. Aizawa's expression darkened. Fun? He whispered. The word cut through the excitement like a blade. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be fun? He smiled, a wide, terrifying expression that didn't reach his eyes. Right. Let's make it interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential and will be instantly expelled. Expelled? Uraraka cried. But it's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa deadpanned. Villain attacks aren't fair. Our job is to correct the unfairness. If you want to hang out at McDonald's, go home. He looked at the clipboard. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Izuku swallowed hard. Expulsion. This was Gran Torino's warning coming true. The real work starts now. He looked at his shoes. The heavy iron soles dug into the dirt. I have to show them, Izuku thought. Not 100%. Not 0%. Control. Test 1, 50-meter dash. First up were Ida and Azuri. Ida used his engines. 3.04 seconds. Fast. Like a car. Then, Uraraka and Ojiro. Midoriya, Bakugo. Aizawa called out. Izuku stepped to the line. Bakugo stood next to him. I'm going to smoke you, Deku, Bakugo whispered. You and your fake quirk. On your marks, the robot camera said. Izuku breathed in. He felt the hum. One for all flooded his legs. The green lightning sparked invisibly under his tracksuit pants. Get set. He leaned forward, putting weight on the balls of his feet. Sorahiko style, jet start. Go! Bang! Bakugo fired explosions behind him, propelling himself forward. Izuku didn't explode. He kicked the earth. The ground beneath his starting block shattered. Izuku launched himself forward, staying low, his body almost parallel to the ground to minimize wind resistance. He moved in a series of rapid, bounding leaps. Step. 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 He was a blur. Bakugo looked to his side, expecting to see dust. Instead, he saw green. They crossed the line. Bakugo, 4.13 seconds. Midoriya, 4.10 seconds. What? Bakugo skidded to a halt, nearly tripping. 4.10? Izuku decelerated, his shoes carving grooves into the dirt. He stood up, shaking out his legs. Close one, Izuku panted. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. He's fast. Not engine fast like Ida, but explosive acceleration. And he runs, heavily. Like he's fighting the ground. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku squeezed the device. He channeled 5% into his forearm. 56 kilograms. Average, he muttered. Mizo Shoji got 540 kilograms. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku stood at the edge of the sandbox. Full cowling. He crouched and sprang. He cleared the sandbox entirely. He cleared the grass behind the sandbox. He landed near the fence. Whoa, Kaminari said. Did you see that height? He jumps like a grasshopper. Test 4, repeated side steps. This was Torino's specialty. Izuku moved side to side so fast he created an afterimage. It wasn't just speed. It was the ability to reverse momentum instantly without losing balance. Left. Right. Left. Right. He scored near the top of the class, just behind Mineta, who used his balls to bounce. Aizawa watched, his pen tapping against the clipboard. Midoriya Izuku. He doesn't rely on raw power. He relies on kinetic efficiency. It's like watching a veteran pro in a child's body. But, Aizawa frowned. The entrance exam footage showed him breaking the robot with a massive impact. Why is he holding back? Is he arrogant? Or is there a limit he's afraid to cross? The final test, ball throw. It was finally Izuku's turn. Uraraka had just scored infinity, which demoralized everyone. Izuku walked into the circle. He picked up the ball. He felt the eyes on him. Bakugo's burning glare. Ida's analytical stare. Uraraka's hopeful smile. And Aizawa's tired, judging gaze. If I use 100%, I can send this into orbit, Izuku thought. But I'll break my arm. And Torino will kill me. And Dad will cry. And Aizawa will expel me for being a liability. I have to use the shoot-style logic. Use the whole body. He stood in the circle. He didn't wind up his arm like a pitcher. He dropped into a stance. A martial arts stance. He tossed the ball slightly into the air. Visualize the engine. 5%. No. Push it. Redline the idle. 8%. Green sparks crackled around his body, visible this time. The air hummed. As the ball fell, Izuku spun. He used the rotation of his hips, the torque of his spine, and the whip crack of his arm. It was a throw, but it utilized the mechanics of a kick. He reached back, erase. The power vanished. The hum died. Izuku stumbled, the momentum lost. He threw the ball. It flopped onto the grass. 46 meters. What? Izuku stared at his hand. The engine stalled? He looked up. Aizawa stood there. His hair was floating, defying gravity. His eyes glowed red. The scarf around his neck seemed to writhe like a living thing. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said, his voice cold. The erasure hero, Eraserhead, Izuku identified instantly. Underground hero. Rare. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough. Aizawa walked closer, invading Izuku's personal space. Even a kid like you was accepted. A kid like me? I saw the footage, Aizawa said. You saved the girl, yes. But you look like you were about to shatter your legs to do it. And now? You're holding back. You're terrified of your own power. Aizawa leaned down, his eyes boring into Izuku's. From what I see, you can't control your quirk. You rely on speed because you're afraid to use force. What happens when speed isn't enough, Midoriya? When you encounter a villain you can't outrun? Will you break yourself then? Becoming a burden effectively creates two victims instead of one.